What's up? Hey, I'm going to do a solo on this because I think it's going to make it easier just to give my thoughts, the way I view it, put it out there. I'll post it up on YouTube. You guys can check it out. And then aid in the discussion once we actually go and have a discussion on this. Because I think semantics and silliness and unrealistic expectations are pretty much the norm. So I just kind of want to define stuff and ask questions. So made a little list of notes for myself, and I'm just going to jump right down them. Later on, we'll do a live. We'll get whoever wants to be on it, and I think we can have an honest discussion about what we're actually expecting from law enforcement. And just to be very clear, this is specific to expectations of law enforcement officers by both their community, their department, and themselves. That's what we kind of want to identify. At least I do. So the first one I had on my question thing was, do we want an advantage or a sexy name for what we're doing? I think a lot of times we want a sexy name for it without even clearly identifying the actual mission, the actual thing that we're trying to accomplish. And I think the rest of these questions will hopefully at least open up the conversation to that. So the next one I have is, why does deliberate clearing have an association with slow? Well, I mean, generally it is. So generally it is slower. It's not as rapid of a pace. But if we want to play the games of semantics, I mean, we can just be honest and say, you step into a room and someone's 5 feet away from you shooting you. Yes, you are engaging in close quarters battle, right? But so let's not even get into the weeds of that. We'll define that end state as we go. So the question I had that goes with that one, which is why does deliberate have an association with slow, is would an investment in time, a deliberate investment in time prior to the service of a warrant, give us a clearer direction and expectation as to how we're going to go about and what the end state, and if we run into this, then we'll do this type expectations are for the service of the warrant? And I think it would. So we can be deliberate in our planning and our expectations. It doesn't mean you have to stand in the hallway, which is what, when I see a lot of teams do slow and deliberate clearance and have conversations about a bajillion different options and then make really hasty decisions and movements when we actually go to do it. So when I watch guys do slow and deliberate clearance, it's generally just slow and there's nothing deliberate about it. There's no actual thought, no purpose in what they're trying to accomplish in it. The next one I had is, I just wrote on here, oftentimes slow is talking and then hasty decisions and movement. I got 2 open doors right, I got this, I got that, okay, and then we just go. Or we pan it very slowly and then we go without any real thought as to, well, if you see an individual halfway into the room standing in the middle, are you going to back off and call them to you where you have an advantage, or are you going to enter the room? You're going to keep panning. Like, those are all things that can get worked through in training, and you have to I think we should understand those as TTPs ahead of time. I'm not going to argue for or against them. And I just put in here kind of a definition of deliberate, right? It means consciously and intentionally, purposefully, right? So why don't we call it purposeful clearance, right? Purposeful CQB, because it's semantics again. We're just trying to put another fancy name on what it is we're trying to do because we want to have a name to it. And in the end, the original topic, sorry I didn't start that with it, is, are we doing CQB or are we searching buildings, right? Are we clearing buildings? And then in the end, what is the goal of either one of those? So the next bullet point that I had for you guys to ponder on is, what is the difference between a residential audible alarm call, right? You get called to a residential house, audible alarm call. What's the difference between that and serving a search warrant? I want you to think on that one before you immediately jump to an answer, because I have some more questions that go with it. So the question again is, what's the difference between a residential audible alarm call and the service of a search warrant? And you're like, well, fuck, man, one is this and one is that. Okay, so let's get into the weeds on it and be honest about what mission are we actually trying to accomplish when we get to either one of those. So what I put on my notes here is, do we provide the same level of security to a citizen as we do a detective? When we go on that audible alarm call, do we clear that building as detailed and thoroughly as we do when we clear it for a search warrant, right? It's up for you to answer. I know we did. When we cleared a building, I think another one to add on to that would be for the guys that are on teams or the guys who have actually served a search warrant. Has anyone ever missed an occupant on a search warrant? I have. Not me personally, but we have missed people in the house, literally in cubbies in walls. So it does happen. So my question would be, well, how many people have been missed when you clear an audible alarm at a house and then you turn it over to the homeowner, the citizen, like not even the police, right? When we talk about safety priorities, should we be even more thorough in our searches on an audible alarm than we are on a search warrant? No, they should be equally positive. No one else is occupying that structure, which brings you to the main point of what we're doing. In the end, the goal is to find out if the structure is occupied, right? When you're going to an audible alarm call, the goal is to find out if the building is occupied, and anyone that is in that building is in there illegally or not. Do they want to prosecute? There's all the things that go with it. But in a search warrant, you're really just securing the building. You do not have, somebody can tell me if I'm wrong, but every search warrant that I've ever served did not come and tell me that each individual found in that house was under arrest at that time. Now you may develop probable cause to arrest individuals as the search is conducted, or as evidence is gathered further on, but the issuance of a search warrant by a judge does not give you authority to arrest the individuals in that home. You can detain them for a reasonable time during the search, or to allow you to gain access so you can do less damage. There's a bunch of other reasons you could do it, but you don't have the ability to arrest everyone in that house. So therefore, you don't have PC to arrest anyone in that house just for serving a search warrant. But I'd break it to the opposite direction, that if you're on an audible alarm call at a residential structure, before you go in and clear it, you should be verifying that the homeowner wants to prosecute anyone that's found inside. And then when you do enter to clear it, you actually have PC to arrest everyone you find inside a house if it's an audible alarm. So you actually have more force options even available to you when you're clearing a house for an audible alarm. Yet we seem to just do that willy-nilly. We do this, we pie doors, and we seem to treat those two things different, when in the end we're really just trying to find out if it's occupied. And on an audible alarm, if you were going down the hallway and someone yelled out from the back, "Get out of here, I have a gun," would you continue down the hallway and pan the doorway? I say no, because you've already accomplished the actual mission, which is to find out if it's occupied, and if it's occupied by someone who's resistant to your authority and your ability to arrest them. On a search warrant, if you did the same thing, slow and deliberate, dynamic, whatever it is, and you're heading down the hallway and a guy yells out, "Get out, I got a gun," are you going to continue towards that doorway, pan the doorway, enter the doorway dynamically, or do any of those things as a law enforcement officer? And I got to say, probably no, you're not. So in the end, you're really doing the damn same thing. You're trying to find out, is this place occupied? And if so, is it occupied by someone who is refusing to comply with our commands, right? They're exercising control over the structure. If they're going to exercise control over the structure, what do you have if you're a cop? You have a barricade. So it kind of on its face automatically makes the argument towards surround and call out, treating it like a barricade. I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong, but it's like, let's be honest in what we're actually accomplishing when we're doing it and what we expect from each other as we go about doing it. So I would say on an audible alarm call, anyone that you run into in there should be under arrest. Now, you can always later on determine that, oh shit, I forgot, cousin Willie was supposed to be there, and you can always unarrest them. But they are under arrest when you go to clear that. And I think the guys you probably want to ask the question would be if you're going to talk to your canine guys and go, "Hey, can we just cut the dog loose to clear this place?" On a burglary alarm call, they're often more able to and willing, depending on where you work, to let the dog go on a long lead or a short lead and clear space for you. On a search warrant, you cannot throw the door open and cut the dog loose because you don't have PC to arrest anybody in there. So it was kind of one of my weird tangents, and I apologize. Think on the stuff that we talked about. I already asked that when we were clearing a residential structure. So this is another one I have. Nope, we already talked about that. Issuance of a search warrant and going in and clearing the place, you do not have PC to arrest everyone in there. It's developed as evidence is located and found. We're not talking about arrest warrants. Those are its own kettle of fish, right? So the next one I have in here is when serving an arrest warrant, Do we have PC to arrest the named individual in any public space or any place that we can get to him, but that doesn't include structures unless it's their own, right? So if you have PC to arrest Bob for whatever felonious crime it is, and he is in his house and you know it's his house, that arrest warrant will allow you to force entry to effect the arrest of the individual, not search the place. You need a search warrant for that. If Bob is at his Aunt Mary's house, you cannot force entry into Aunt Mary's house to arrest Bob. We're not talking about hot pursuit. We're not talking about any of that stuff because she has an expectation of privacy, right? Everything comes down to the damn Constitution and how much we respect it, and that's what really should be driving your decisions. I think most cops know you're going to need to actually get a search warrant for her house, but it's to effect the arrest of the individual, right? Those are just some of the things I want to talk about when the whole topic was, hey, are we doing building searches or are we doing CQB? In CQB, the object is we are going to secure this structure, right? No matter, come hell or high water. That's basically the way I look at it. If those are your baseline tactics, like no matter what happens, we are going to secure the structure, then in that semantic use of the word, you're doing CQB because nothing is going to stop you. I think the only time that actually seems to be a reasonable request is when we're effecting the rescue of an individual, right? Hostages or innocents. We're going in there, nothing, come hell or high water, nothing is going to stop the flow going into that. Everything else is really just a building search. And if we're going to be deliberate about it, we need to be purposeful with it, and we need to actually exercise and leverage every bit of technology and legal ability that we have. This is where I think it gets weird. If we're doing an audible alarm call, the safest way to make sure no one is in there would be to break all the windows and blow holes in all the walls, and including the attic, and make sure no one's in that, and then fly drones all over the place. But we can't do that, right? Because we also can't just damage these people's property. So think about the ways you go about clearing on a search warrant. Are you damage adverse? A search warrant doesn't give you the right to break everything. It gives you the right to force entry or cause damage to safely do things. So being able to articulate why you punched a hole in a wall on a search warrant because of things you were seeing, a locked door or something like that, is perfectly reasonable, where it wouldn't be as reasonable if you have an audible alarm. That's where you get a hold of the homeowner. Hey, we have a locked door in here. Whose room is that? That's my bedroom. I have the keys. I'll be there in a while. And they can always make the decision like, no, I don't want you to go in that room. I just want you to make sure no one's in there. And you can always say, well, we don't think anyone else is in there, but we just have to turn this over to you. Without going in it if you're not going to allow us to. And if they come up and allow you, they open the door and say, yeah, just make sure no bad guys are in there. How many times have you been on an audible alarm where the homeowner basically wants to open the door for you? And I've seen it happen where you allow them to unlock the door and I'm like, well, then it ain't that damn dangerous, right? Or you take the key from them and you unlock it and you open the door up and you clear it as normal and say, hey, could you please wait outside for us? Once you're done, my question is, did you even check the attic access? Did you look under the beds? Did you look in all their cabinet drawers? Did you look in the washer, the dryer, all the places where we've actually found people? Did you look under the car in their garage? Did you look in the car in their garage? So maybe this is just a really long, rambling way of asking the simple question is, if we're honest with ourselves on a typical search warrant where we don't have PC to arrest anybody, unless they're identified in that warrant, right? We don't have PC to arrest anybody in there. Are we just doing a building search? And if we're doing it deliberately, have we put any sort of purposeful, deliberate thought into how we're going to go about doing it ahead of time so we waste less time yapping in the hallway and then making hasty decisions? So I don't know if that made any sense at all. I just felt like that would be a fun one for guys to think on and talk about. I got a lot more minutia of it that we can go over in a live later on. But I'll throw this up on YouTube if you want to watch it, have thoughts on it, actually think about it. Feel free to hit me up, tell me I'm crazy. But I think in the end, it really doesn't matter what teams are doing. It's what is the most efficient, safest way to actually handle this problem. And then keeping in mind that the safety of the community, the safety of the officers, and the safety of the individuals inside is the primary goal. Our goal is to secure residents, to find evidence of a crime we believe was committed without hurting anyone, and if we do find evidence of a crime, to take them into custody with the least force possible. Enjoy. Hit me up.